There's no such thing as the greatest match ever. You're not going to be able to say definitively what is the greatest song of all time, what is the greatest painting of all time, what is the greatest movie of all time, what is the greatest band of all time. It's impossible because there's no general consensus. You can have great matches, but what is the greatest is going to be different to almost everybody. Not the words of a jaded wrestling fan, no, the words of Adam Copeland, aka Edge, aka one half of the match being billed as the greatest wrestling match ever. To say the pressure is on is an understatement. Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. This is Backlash 2020 Graded. The US Championship match is bumped to the kickoff show. Andrade challenging Apollo Crews for the title with Kevin Owens on commentary and Angel Garza circling the ring. It's a good back and forth, 60-40 Apollo Crews to be honest. Andrade does get a beauty of a springboard DDT in late into the match, but Apollo Crews will rally, but goes for the winning cover, only to have Angel Garza jump onto the apron to run distraction. Enter Owens from the commentation station to hit the stunner on Garza. Shortly after this, Apollo Crews gets the beautiful toss powerbomb for the 1, 2, 3. Apollo Crews retains his US Championship. C+ to get us started. It was fine. It was a good match. Not the best that they have had, but it was certainly a good way to get us started. I am ready to see Apollo Crews face some new people for the US Championship from now on. The Women's Tag Team Championship is on the line next. It's a triple threat. Bliss Cross Applesauce. Best name ever. Versus the IIconics versus the Women's Tag Champions Bayley and Sasha Banks. Some good triple threat motions here as the match wears on. A lot of times you see the IIconics and Bayley and Banks teaming up and then dissension leading them to fall apart again. Late in the match, Alexa Bliss gets a really great flurry, just wiping out everybody with Thez presses. Peyton Royce hits a crossbody through the middle rope that sort of collapses everybody and gets a relatively unneeded "This is awesome" chant. Just saying. Bliss and Cross hit a rather messy looking shatter machine. I think that's what they were going for, I'm not quite sure. Then Bliss hits Twisted Bliss, only to have Sasha Banks turn up, get the roll up out of nowhere for the 1, 2, 3. Bayley and Banks retain their Women's Tag Team Championships. Giving it a C. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. Quite a few ropey spots in this one. Just sort of nobody really shone in it, with the exception of a hot flurry from Bliss and the aforementioned slightly clumsy crossbody from Peyton Royce. I feel like all the storyline focus right now is on Bayley and Banks and that sort of friendship tightrope that they are currently walking. That's the main focus, and that was the main focus of this match, if there was any. A very personal match between Jeff Hardy and Sheamus, now inspired by urine throwing on SmackDown. There's never enough toilet humour, is there, in wrestling? There's never enough. Sheamus starts pretty heavy on Jeff Hardy. It feels like a grudge match. Like, there's a lot of intense action from the get-go. And Sheamus even drops Jeff Hardy's foot onto the ring post at one point, which looks really, really cringy. Like the way that it lands, and Jeff Hardy basically is now limping throughout this entire match. Sheamus slows the pace right down, wears down Jeff Hardy. We get a flurry from Jeff Hardy near the end, doesn't quite get the win off a Swanton Bomb, goes for that barricade clothesline, the old Jeff Hardy classic, which is difficult to do with plexiglass on the barricade, so fair play to Hardy. His reward for attempting such a move was a brogue kick that nearly took his nose off. Sheamus follows this up with a second brogue kick in the ring for the 1, 2, 3. I'm giving this a C+. I think these two are going to have a great match down the line. I don't think this was the great match. It started really well, and then just sort of dragged in the middle. The right finish, I guess. I mean, maybe if I was feeling a little bit kinder, I'd bump this up to a B-. But these two will have a great match. I don't think this was the great match that they will have. The Raw Women's titles on the line next is Asuka versus Nia Jax. Quick strikes to start, and Asuka tries to get an early win with an octopus stretch and a front chokehold, neither of which puts down Nia Jax, who just seems to always have an answer for Asuka's offense. So at one point we see Asuka rallying. She goes up to the top rope. Nia Jax stops her, whatever she was planning to do. Then Asuka counters that by grabbing Nia Jax's arm, going for an armbar over the ropes. But as she leans over the ropes, it looks like Nia Jax like sort of drops down, or it just the move falls off. And I can't help but feel, Jack said this as well in what happened at, and I think it's true. I think the plan was meant to be that Asuka was meant to put that arm bar on. They were meant to roll out of the ring together, and Asuka was going to keep the arm bar on. But that didn't happen. So as soon as they get out of the ring, Asuka quickly reapplies the arm bar. And then Nia Jax, I think, goes to swing her and smack her into the side, but drops her early. It's just a hot mess. Just a hot mess. And then they're fighting outside the ring. Asuka manages to break away, but doesn't beat the count. Both women get counted out. And then to end the match, we see Asuka jump off the apron with a hip attack, wiping out Nia Jax, heading up the ramp. Oh, this was a C. This was a rough watch. The finish could have done with a rewrite. The stars didn't quite align for these two tonight. It was just a bit of a mess, really. Probably one of Asuka's weakest matches to date. I don't know what's going on with Asuka at the moment. She lost to Charlotte Flair by pinfall on Raw, and then she can't even eke out a win over Nia Jax. It's a double count out. Something went wrong here. It wasn't their night. It wasn't their night, and the C is out of politeness. Miz and Morrison challenge Braun Strowman for the Universal title now. Before the match, we find out that whoever gets the winning pinfall out of Miz and Morrison becomes the champ. I think they had ideas of becoming double champ, and that's not going to be the case. Expect dissension. They debut their new song before the match starts, and it's all about Braun Strowman has to go, and he smells of cheese, and he wet the bed when he was a kid, and he wears Crocs. Just hire Joe Hendry. Just hire Joe Hendry. He nails this stuff. Hire Hendry. Hashtag hire Hendry. Strowman's dominant mostly through this one. We see Miz and Morrison take advantage after Morrison hits a twisting senton outside of the ring. A double finish, the old skull-crushing finale double stomp, puts Braun Strowman down, but Morrison goes for the pin, and Miz has a little moment of eager maniacalness, pulls his tag team partner away from the pin, stops it from going down, and then realizes what he did, puts Morrison back on top, only for Braun to power out and bolt him through the ropes. Braun's back to his feet now. Choke slam to Miz, running power slam to Morrison. 1, 2, 3, we're done. Braun Strowman retains. C+. It was fine. It was all right, actually. There were some good bits in there. There was some good fun in there. There's a good bit of dissension story told, but it wasn't great. It was just all right. It's been a pretty mediocre show so far, in my opinion, but I think it's about to go to the other side as Drew McIntyre puts the WWE title on the line against Bobby Lashley. Drew heads out to the ring, gets in the face of MVP, and in the distraction we see Bobby Lashley creep up behind Drew, put the full Nelson on him, and it takes multiple refs to get Lashley off of Drew. And this is before the match has started. The ref asks if Drew can compete, and Drew's like, yeah, I can compete. Bell sounds, and Drew wrestles the first part of this match still in his coat because Bobby is just not giving him an inch. This was a really creative start to the match. Scary moments in the early stages as well, as Drew gets picked up by Bobby Lashley outside, and Bobby loses his footing and then loses balance and drops Drew. Nearly drops him on his head. You can tell they have a little moment where they gather and make sure Drew's all right. Drew's fine, so Bobby rewards him by just throwing him into the ring post. Drew finally gets something in this match. Bobby goes for a spear outside the ring, and Drew turns it into sort of like an overhead throw and sends Bobby crashing into the barricade. And Drew's fight back is here, but it doesn't last very long. Bobby wears him down with a crossface. Then Drew manages to stand up whilst in the crossface, turns it into, looks like he's going to turn it into a tombstone pile driver. Hi, Undertaker, I see you. Let's have a match in a minute. Don't you have your last ride, mate? It looks like he's going for a tombstone, but then Lashley turns it into an ankle lock. Nearly gets the win off the ankle lock. Drew's not done though. He fights back. He hits a superplex. He goes for the Claymore, only to eat a spear on impact. 2 count only off of the spear, and then Lana makes her way down to the ring. She climbs up onto the apron, starts giving the ref grief, calling the ref a cheat. for not counting quick enough. Of course, this is distracting Lashley. MVP's telling Lana to get away. And before we know what's happened, Bobby's crashed into Lana on the side of the ring, and Lana's flown off the ring apron and landed onto MVP. It's just chaos, which Drew takes full advantage of with a big claymore to the face of Bobby for the 1, 2, 3. Drew retains the title. Bobby and MVP just give scorn to Lana and just walk past her as she looks all sad. And Drew gives us all a kiss through the camera. Thank you, Drew. B+ for this. Best match of the night so far. Really, really strong opening to the match. Some good stuff in the middle. Ending was a bit convoluted with Lana randomly coming out the way that she did. But I kind of get why we're further in the story of dissension. But the finish kind of just felt a bit convoluted for me, which is why I'm not giving it an A-. But as I say, best match of the night. I think at this point, it feels like they're saving the show. And then, okay. We're meant to get Street Profits Viking Raiders for the Raw Tag Team titles. It's a fight that's already started in the car park. And they smash Braun Strowman's car by accident. And they run inside. Then music starts playing. And then we all realise, oh, we're in a cinematic wrestling match. Okay. Golf clubs and Viking shields and bowling balls all being swung around with reckless abandon. We see them fighting through the hallways, fighting into like this marquee section. We see Ivar with the bowling ball reminiscing on the bowling they did the other day. Throughout this match, I'm saying match, like, oh, I'm clearly trapped in Undertale. This match, as we're calling it. It's intersped so with Ivar dream sequences that reflect on the anything you can do, we can do better challenge. So if I mention dream sequences, that's what we're referring to. Ivar throws a bowling ball at Montez Ford's privates. They fight outside. We see Angelo Dawkins smash Ivar through a glass window, which is an extreme spot for what was sort of billed as a comedy match. Ivar reminisces on eating turkey legs whilst he's recovering. Yeah, I guess. They all recuperate outside and they're about to fight outside. And then Akira Tozawa turns up on a motorbike with a load of ninjas. Viking Raiders team up to become the Viking Prophets. They have a graphic and everything. And we have a sort of a 70s kung fu movie sequence going down here, which is fun. It's quite fun. And then they manage to fight off all of the ninjas, and then Akira Tozawa introduces us to this 7-foot ninja who has a sword, and then they all run away. They're fighting on top of the truck, right? Angelo Dawkins hits a bulldog on Eric through a dumpster below the truck. Then Ivar pushes Montez Ford into the dumpster. We get Air Ivar. He jumps into the dumpster as well. They're all laying the dumpster surrounded by garbage. Ivar dreams again about all the women that fancied him during the anything you can do, we can do better challenge. Lady Ref Jess turns up. Lady Ref Jess tells them all, hey, your match is now. What are you doing? Hey, Ivar, you're cute. Eric, not so much. Let's finish that gag off. Tie a little bow around it. So they're all in the dumpster, all like wounded and battered from this fight that they've had, and then all of a sudden there's a crocodile. I think it's a crocodile, and they all scramble to get out of the dumpster. End of sequence. Okay. 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 Now, a lot of people will bury this today, so I will be the better obscure company and I won't. Okay. And I'm basing this on the fact that when they announced Viking Raiders and Street Profits for the show, can't say that I was like champing at the bit to see that match. I was. Nothing to do with Street Profits and Viking Raiders. I think they're great, but I was just like, okay, it's a match, I guess. It needs to happen. We need to finish off this story. But we got this instead. I think this was the blow-off. I think this was the end of it, I think. And I'm all right with that, if that's the end of it. I mean, all these segments they've done have ranged from okay to, oh, God. And this was just daft. This was just very, very daft. Now, whilst a lot of the comedy didn't really land, like a million dreams from Ivar as we're rolling through, the random crocodile in the dumpster at the end, Tozawa and his ninjas, that's most of the comedy I've just mentioned. I'm going to be polite and I'm going to give this a C. I'm going to give this a C because as stupid as this was, I was actually quite entertained at points of this. And there'll be a lot of wrestling fans that are too cool for school and won't admit that today. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm 36 years old and I'm very comfortable in the fact that there were bits in this that made me smile. And I don't want to just downgrade this in hopes that you'll think I'm cool. So I'm not going to. It's my graded. I'll grade what I like. And it wasn't brilliant. It wasn't, it wasn't the height of comedy. WWE never is. But it was fine. It's fine. I'm giving it a C. This is basically a C for effort. Now let's move on to something else in the tag team division. Can we? Shall we? We shall. Ladies and gents, this is the moment you waited for. The greatest wrestling match ever is your main event of the evening. Let's talk aesthetics, shall we? Let's talk the music playing from The Greatest Showman as the match is starting. Let's talk the Madison Square Garden microphone that comes down to the ring. Let's talk about the ghost of Howard Finkel that intros Randy Orton and Edge. Whoa, okay. And let's talk about the crowd. Before we get into the rigors of the match, they piped in crowd noise for this to give it a bigger feel. But we're not idiots. We know you're not in a stadium. You're blatantly in the performance center in front of, a few of the recruits and a few NXT guys. We know you're not in a stadium. Why do this? Like, it kept pulling me out of what was an incredible effort from both guys. Let's talk about the match itself. It most definitely was a wrestling match. Before we get into whether it was the greatest or not, it most definitely was a wrestling match. Slow build with Orton outwitting Edge on multiple occasions in lockups and holds and such like that. Edge would finally start to get some momentum going, and as he would, the match would speed up too. We saw our big dive to the outside of the ring from Edge, who, after headbutting Orton off the rope, does a clothesline and knocks him off the apron. And this is where we see Orton bleeding. We get a bit of blood in this match, which is rare for 2020. Edge dodges an RKO, but following a neck breaker, we see Orton come alive, and he is just wiping out Edge, banging him almost neck first against the plexiglass, the apron, it looks really brutal, and top marks to Edge, who genuinely had me worried throughout most of this match with the way that he would sell stuff. It wasn't your typical sort of hit the ground and go, oh, I'm hurting. Like, you'd see him take a move where he mainly landed on like his head and his neck, and you'd see him slowly crumple to the floor. Like, his eyes sometimes wide open, like you see that sort of glazed look as if, and quite a few times you go, is he really hurt there? Is he really hurt there? He's very good. He's very, very good. Very much a match of 3 acts, this one. And in the 3rd act, they just go for it. Edge busting out the big guns, the execution, the edge-o-matic, Christian's unprettier, all for near falls. Orton can't get that gosh darn RKO. So he's trying loads of other stuff, including a pedigree from his mentor, Triple H, for a near fall. Edge responds with a rock bottom of all things for a near fall of his own. Finalima, Randy Orton manages to land the RKO and Edge kicks out at 2. We see Orton go for the punt only to eat a spear, then another spear for a 2 count. We get another RKO, another near fall, and this is where we get to the crucial moment in the match. Orton is picking up Edge, who has just kicked out of an RKO, and he's just reading him the riot act, and then Edge, in one last grasp, just locks in the front face lock. I think it's been called the anti-venom now. Locks in this anti-venom, locks it in tight. And the camera angles, as great as they have tried to be throughout this match, really fail us here because we miss a crucial moment in the dying moments of this match. As from what we understand, Randy Orton kicks low onto Edge, which breaks the anti-venom. Apparently he kicks low. We don't quite see it. The angles sort of miss it. But either way, Orton goes low, a punt kick finishes off Edge, and Randy Orton, 1, 2, 3, wins the greatest wrestling match ever. And in we see as the moment happens, as the pinfall goes down, Edge is staring up at the lights. Orton's in his ear telling him to go home and tell his kids that Uncle Randy says hi. And then if you look, you just see a tear running down Edge's cheek as this is happening. Orton heads up the ramp. The paramedics turn up with a stretcher, but Edge doesn't want to leave. He wants to leave under his own steam, so he doesn't get on the stretcher. And Orton watches Edge pull himself to his feet at the end of the match, refusing the stretcher, and that is how we go off the air. Your main event of Backlash gets an A from me. They really set themselves up for failure by hyping this as the greatest wrestling match ever, but Edge and Orton really shot for the moon on this, and they put on an excellent show. It was such a strong match that built beautifully over about 30-35 minutes. It had a finish that leaves us wanting a little bit more, and just closing moments that just really wrench at your heart. They really do. I can't give this any higher than an A because I found that the crowd noise, we talked about this, but the piped in crowd noise was a distraction on quite a few occasions, which is a shame. It took away from that, and like some of the more excessive camera cuts I think were a little bit too much. I thought the fact that for all these great cameras that all this great camera work you're attempting to do, you miss a really crucial part in the end of the match. That kind of sucks as well. But look, none of that is on the performers. None of that is on the performers. Edge and Randy Orton, beautiful here, absolutely setting a pace, and I'm giving this match an A. I now will average out all of the grades from Backlash, and there were some lower grades in this particular one, but with the power of that amazing main event and a really, really good WWE title match, Backlash comes out as a B-. Was it the greatest show? Absolutely not. No, this is one of the weaker shows that WWE have had, and if it hadn't been for that stunning main event between Edge and Orton, this would have been a far lower grade average. So B- I think is incredibly polite for what we got, but you can thank Edge and Orton for that, for putting on one hell of a match in the main event. Stay safe. Love you, bye.